You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
What's up, nerds? It's time for another episode of the ThunderQuack Podcast. This week we're talking Cinemacon 2024, X-Men 97's devastating 5th episode, and Star Wars returning to Fortnite for Star Wars Day. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the ThunderQuack Podcast. I am your host, Michael Cohen, and joining me, as always, he's back from the dead, the incorrigible Joe Hogan.
My man, I mean, I'm gonna sound pretty. Excuse me, I'm gonna sound pretty dead anyway.
Yeah.
Had the flu, and my coughs usually last about 6 weeks. So sorry everyone, you're gonna be hearing it for about 6 weeks.
Between you being sick and it now being like we're straight into allergy season, we may as well just rename this the bodily functions cast. Like you're gonna hear me. I am going to sniffle every 30 seconds because Perfect. I have to. Like, it's just like my body is not equipped to deal with the world. My sinuses are just wrecked. And you're gonna cough constantly, and that's fine. That's fine, because you know what? That's people are not here for professionalism. They're here for us.
Don't ask me why. But.
I can't figure it out either. But I'm glad that you guys are here. We got a ton to talk about today. We'll jump right into the news here. So last week was Cinemacon. I believe it's held in Vegas. I think it's one of those things. So Cinemacon, for those who don't know, is a convention for cinemas. Literally for the proprietors of movie theaters. So people who run movie theaters and theater chains. Now, Cinemacon made a lot more sense 20 years ago, when it wasn't just like 3 or 4 massive chains that owned all of the theaters, right? Because it used to be back in the day that that many of the smaller theaters were like mom and pop sort of family owned situations, right? And maybe a theater owner had like 2 locations, right? But nowadays it's really just like, I don't know what. Up here we have Cinemark, and no, we have Landmark, not Cinemark. We have Landmark and we have Cineplex. You guys have AMC, Cinemark. What else you got? There's like 4.
Regal.
Okay.
I don't know if it's huge, but we have Alamo Drafthouse also, which is a pretty big chain here.
Yeah, it's getting bigger. But that's really just like major cities, right? I don't think smaller.
I honestly, I don't know.
Have Alamos, but yeah. So nowadays it's like, well, most of these theater companies, like most of the movie theaters that you go to are owned by this handful of companies. In Canada, it really is Cineplex. Like any major multiplex theater is just going to be a Cineplex theater. And then you might get like in Vancouver, I think we have 2 Landmark cinemas. Like it's really it's crazy how monopolistic it's become. And so like you don't have a choice. You just go where you go. Thankfully it's not been as bad as like the monopolies with the grocery store chains or anything like that, where they're just price gouging like crazy. Movie theaters have actually, like, I think because of the fact that the pandemic almost wiped them out, they've had to stay pretty competitive. And because people can't afford anything, because groceries and rent and gas and the things that we need to survive Really not even survive. This is the craziest thing. The things that we require just to like be able to go to work and continue to go to work for companies are so expensive that we don't have time or money for things like luxuries like the movies. I actually just recently talked about this on an episode of Off the Record. um, one of our listeners over on Discord gave me the topic to talk about like what movie theaters can do to kind of get people back in the theater. And I talked about it and I was like, well, like there's cool stuff like I kind of talked about like the Alamo Drafthouse type of thing, and those type of experiences. But I very quickly got into the fact that like it's got nothing to do with the movie theater experience. It has nothing to do with that. It's not movies. It's not the theater going experience. It is very simply the fact that nobody can afford to live anymore. And that like so if you want people back in theaters, this is the spoiler alert for that episode of Off the Record. If you want people to go back to the movie theaters, universal basic income is actually probably the best bet. Like you will see box offices go back to the $1 billion mark consistently if you did that, because people would actually have time and money to go to the movies, which they don't right now. So and like on top of that, everybody's getting gouged by 1,000 streaming services. So it's like if you're paying for Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus / Hulu, HBO Max, whatever they're calling it now. Like that's like I just named 4 streaming services, and that's like $100 a month that people are spending for streaming services. It's more expensive than cable was. It's ridiculous. It's like it's everything's just gotten so absurd. But in any case, Cinemacon is a convention for theater owners to go and see all of the things from the studios so that they can like make choices about what movies they're going to bring into their theaters. Again, as if like this CinemaCon is like it's just like a remnant of a past, like of an industry that doesn't exist anymore. Because like there's this idea that a theater would be like, I think maybe I'll get that Deadpool and Wolverine movie. That's not the way it works anymore. Every movie's got to come to every major theater chain, right? Like every major screen. And like there's an aspect of like, okay, banking on like how many screens are we gonna do for Deadpool and Wolverine versus Transformers 1, right? Like and looking at the release, not that those are up against each other, but just like those are just the 2 movies that came to mind. But like looking at it and going like, okay, the last couple weeks is a really great example, actually, right? We had Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and then Godzilla and Kong New Empire. We had 2 Empire versus Empire. And you had to make decisions of like, okay, so is Ghostbusters going to stay on the IMAX screen for more than a week? Nope, it's not. Godzilla Kong is going to kick it out of the IMAX screens immediately. And like Ghostbusters kicked Dune out of the IMAX screens pretty much immediately. Like it's actually it's kind of crazy. It's ridiculous actually that Dune is no longer playing in IMAX. When like listen, I saw Godzilla and Kong on IMAX and it was incredible. But I would very, very quickly run out to go see Dune on the IMAX screen, especially having just witnessed this brand new IMAX screen that opened by me. So pretty, so crystal clear. I if the opportunity was there, but it's not there. Like you can yeah, theater owners have to like make those choices of like what's gonna get the most bang for the buck. And I mean like they were right to put Godzilla and Kong on those screens because it dominated for its first 2 weeks. I haven't looked at the box office this weekend, but yeah, like it crushed, pun intended. So Ghostbusters didn't stand a chance. And so
Yeah.
like there's still that aspect of it that the theater owners have to think about. But really, like, can you imagine a multiplex not getting Dune, Ghostbusters, and Godzilla and Kong? Like no, like they're gonna get all of them. It's the smaller movies that you have to think about, and the smaller movies don't have the money to show up at CinemaCon anyways. So Like they're there, but like they don't have like a big presentation. But the studios, all of that to say, the studios did big sort of keynote presentations at Cinemacon and showed a bunch of footage, announced a bunch of stuff. And so we have a bunch of news for movies. Some coming later this year, some that are a little ways out. So I've broken them down kind of by the three major studios. There's so much news. We're not going to get to all of it, to everything from Cinemacon, but these are sort of the things that I think are going to be relevant to our audience, to the ThunderQuack crowd. So I'm just going to run them down, and then we'll go into the ones that we want to discuss, because I don't know that we necessarily want to get into all of this. But Paramount showed some footage from Transformers 1. People are feeling pretty impressed by it. They announced Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin as a live action film.
I didn't know that.
We'll see if this one even happens. Mark my words on that one. And they announced, or not really announced, but like further confirmed a bunch of animated Avatar feature films that are in the works. And the biggest part of that is that they announced that Dave Bautista is the villain in one of them. So that's pretty cool. Disney, I officially announced the Thunderbolts title, which is Thunderbolts asterisk. The asterisk is part of the title, and it does mean something. So I like, it's interesting. And it's got a lot of people speculating. Deadpool and Wolverine showed some footage, and everybody's, it's what everybody expects. There's a little F-bombs and ridiculousness. And then Captain America: Brave New World showed some footage as well of Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross, speaking with Anthony Mackie's Captain America, and saying that he needs to rebuild the Avengers. I assume that this is actually probably like the lead-in to Thunderbolts, which is that, like, because it's Thunderbolts asterisk. This is my guess, is that they'll be the Avengers at the beginning of that movie, and then it'll be like, no, they're not the Avengers, they're the Thunderbolts. And then the last thing that I wanted to put here was just that Universal showed footage from the Lee Wannell movie Wolfman. And this is one that's like, Universal keeps trying to make these Universal monster movies happen. But I don't know. They alienate a lot of the audience with it. It's going to be interesting. What they showed, I think, is I mean, it piques my curiosity. I'm definitely in for it. Lee Wannell, we just talked about on Perfect 10, the episode about the movie Upgrade, his movie Upgrade. So that's got me like very interested in what this Wolfman movie is going to be. But I think that most people are like it's not even on their radar.
Yeah,
but,
I don't care.
but I'm down for it. But yeah,
I like monster movies though, so like, when there's footage, I will check it out, and if it looks cool, I'll see it. But
let's dig into that one a little bit right now, because this might pique your interest a little bit. So what they showed was sort of like it's a story about this family, a father, wife, and a daughter, and the father is like trying to protect his family from some sort of unseen threat, and we kind of get little glimpses of like basically a giant wolf. Like there's some giant wolf, and the father gets bit by this wolf, like defending his family, and then it quickly turns from he's protecting them from this creature to now he is the creature, right? He starts to transform, and as he does, it becomes like the mother now protecting the daughter from the Wolfman, right? And Lee Wannell, big on the body horror, big on he wrote a few of the Saw movies, like he's I don't think I can't remember if it's Insidious. He's part of like that, you know, that whole franchise, like the whole
Okay,
Insidious
yeah,
franchise.
yeah, I like those movies.
Yeah, so he's involved with that stuff as well. So this will be like legit horror. This will not be like the Tom Cruise Mummy, you know,
Oh
dark universe
man, I
thing.
wanted to like that so bad.
Oh, I love that movie so much. I love that
Oh
movie so much
man.
because it is what it is. Like you can't there's no if you fight against that movie, like if you fight against what that movie is trying to be, you will not have a good time. But if you just let it embrace you and you just go along for the ride, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
I was like, oh man, the mummy's hot.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh god, horrible. Movie sucks, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's super fun. It's super fun and full of silly, ridiculous ideas, making the Universal monsters the Avengers. Like, I love it. It's just League of Extraordinary Gentlemen again, like, but a worse version. And yeah. Anyways, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, also a movie that is like pretty reviled, but I think is a good time at the movies. Good.
I appreciate how much you appreciate the unappreciated.
You know what it is? So this is what it is, and we're gonna talk about this a lot when we get into the show and tell segment later on, and we're gonna talk about it a whole bunch when we do Perfect 10 later this week. But I'm really on this thing lately of like it is very hard to make stuff. It's very hard to make anything, right? Like you know this. We
Sure.
are artists. We have a vision in our heads and try and execute those things, and sometimes it goes well and most of the time it doesn't. It's really, really difficult. Making movies, making television, making animated stuff, comic books, any of these like collaborative mediums where you're getting multiple artists together to execute on a singular vision, it's so difficult. And
Yeah.
I think that internet culture, red letter media style, quote unquote critique has turned us into entitled ungrateful monsters. Because people work so hard to do the absolute best that they can. And so I don't know. I think I probably just have. I mean, like I love bad movies. Like that's nothing new. Like I love bad movies, but there's an element of it now for me in my late 30s, approaching my 40s, of like I don't. Everybody's just out here trying to do their best, and I think that we need to cut folks a bit of slack and recalibrate expectations more than anything. So I don't know. Like if I'm paying the ticket price to go to a movie in the theater, which I did see The Mummy in the theater, I am there to have a good time. And that good time might be Dune Part 2, right? Where Denis Villeneuve is like taking me on a ride into another world and I am like lost in it, right? That might be it. And that's awesome. It might be Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is like, listen, I love Ghostbusters, so no matter what you do, as long as we're busting, I'm feeling good, right? Like that's it. That's all you need to do. And it might be Godzilla, which is like, listen, don't try and engage my brain right now. That's not what I'm here for. Big monster fight big monster, awesome, right? And as long as we're having a good time at the movies, right? I got popcorn, I got soda, I got candy, and I preferably with good friends, right? Like that's what I'm about when it comes to going to the movies. And with TV shows it's very similar, but it's like, listen, if you give me something that I can go on the internet and discuss with my friends in a constructive way, not just like tearing something down, but in
Yeah.
a constructive way, and we can dig into it, and maybe we have different perspectives, but we all are coming at it like with an inquisitive sort of approach, and you see something and I see something and we both learn something from that experience, and it enriches that content. Like that's what I'm looking for with a TV show or streaming show or whatever, right? Or comic book, really anything. But yeah, like I don't know. I think I spent a lot of time on the internet, and it is all well documented and free to download. I trying to be the film school internet cool kid of like, I think this movie could have been better, right? Um, but like it's so exhausting, and that's not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like the movie's not gonna be better because I can armchair quarterback it after the fact, right? I mean, there's certain movies I'm never gonna stop. Rise of Skywalker is not safe from my ranting and raving, but that's I'm too close to it, right? Like it's I said to Crystal, we finished watching Ahsoka. She's so late to everything all the time. We finished watching Ahsoka together. She finally like I watched the third episode like a couple weeks ago. When we watched the third episode, she was like, because we'd kind of watched the first two when it was airing. I obviously watched all of it, but she watched the first two when it was airing, and then just got busy with other stuff and fell off of it. We watched the third episode, and she was like, "Why did I stop watching that?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with you. I can't." She was kind of like, oh, like this is pretty good. Like that was kind of her attitude. She's listening to these podcasts now, so I have to be careful how I represent her, because she'll like come back and be like, that's not what I said. But it's like I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly, but this was sort of like the attitude, right? Was like, oh yeah, okay, we should keep watching it. So we did. So we finished it off this past week. And when we did, she was like, okay, explain to me a couple of things. She wanted to know why Ahsoka's lightsabers were white. And she wanted to know who that giant statue was and stuff. And so we're going into it. And I'm like explaining all of this stuff. And eventually it just gets into like Rise of Skywalker stuff, because it always does with me. And I said to her, I was like, because we're talking about like these cool ideas in Star Wars, all of this really cool stuff that's like off the beaten path. Because we're talking about Mortis, and we're talking about you know, bleeding kyber crystals to turn them red, and then Ahsoka purifying them, and that being connected to what Rey does with the lightsaber in between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And that's sort of how we got onto it. I was like, it would be really cool if this stuff was like in the movies, like if it was actually in Rise of Skywalker. There's so many cool things and then I told her about the opening with the Sith Wayfinder, like the first one that's like in the script that like is in Vader's castle, and like, you know, we were gonna like sort of see that and have more explanation of what was happening on Mustafar, and the fact that like the planet was coming back to life since Vader died, right? Like since Vader turned back to the light side, Mustafar like started transforming, right? Which like is in the movie technically, but is not, like, you don't know that because they never tell you that that's Mustafar at the beginning and blah blah blah. But it was going to be more explicit at one point, and then they were like, no, we're not going to do that. Like they shot stuff and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then they shot all this stuff for like the Eye of Webbish Bog with like the big baby with the spider on its head. They shot it all, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that either. This is too rad. This is too awesome and cool, and it's gonna, like, audiences are gonna be confused because they're gonna be like, it's a Star Wars movie, we should make this boring and lame. And so what we end up with is Kylo Ren running through a forest knifing people, and then he opens like a casket, like he pushes like a thing away, and it's just a big box for a Sith Wayfinder, and he's like, now I have it. And we're like, we don't even know what it is. It was like, okay, cool. And then that's the beginning of the movie. It's so lame. So I went off on like a whole rant of how there's like a million things in Rise of Skywalker, and like the art book and like the unused stuff from the script that's like super cool. And every time there was something super cool, they went, no, let's do something really lame and predictable instead. Every time with that movie, it's like there was like a concerted effort in making that film. So like every time somebody had a cool idea, that somebody else was like, you know what though? It's probably gonna confuse some people. And so they went like, just make it a knife with a map. It's just so dumb. That movie's the worst.
So you're telling me,
yeah,
Tom Cruise mummy good?
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said I love that movie.
Okay.
I said I love that movie. Is it a
Okay.
good movie? No. It's a
Okay.
it's a train wreck conceptually.
Okay.
Right?
I'm just trying to sum up the last 14 minutes. That's all.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely, it's a train wreck. But do I love Tom Cruise 1,000%? Is Jake Johnson in that movie? Yes, he is. Does Kurt Russell play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? He does, but he's not a bad guy.
Is that Kurt Russell?
No, not Kurt
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. Sorry, Russell
I was
Crowe.
like,
No, yeah, Kurt Russell
in that
would have
movie.
been even
I don't
better.
remember that. Yeah, okay.
No, yeah, Russell Crowe. Like, yeah,
Okay.
and it's like Russell Crowe having fun with it. Like, come on, this is my thing. Russell Crowe being serious, Beautiful Mind, Gladiator, get out of here. I don't care. Not for me. Not for me. Master and Commander, I don't think so. Right? Kurt Russell being ridiculous. Sign me up. Sign me up. Did I say Kurt Russell again? Russell Crowe?
I don't know what you said.
I don't know. You guys know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe being ridiculous. I mean, Kurt Russell being ridiculous also signed me up. Kurt Russell being serious also signed me up. Kurt Russell reading the phone book, yeah. Kurt Russell eating a bag of potato chips, I'm there, right? But Russell Crowe, I'm a little bit more picky about my Russell Crowe movies. But yeah, I all of that back to say I'm excited for this Wolfman movie. But
Wolfman,
but yeah, werewolves are my favorite sort of, like classic monster, like vampires.
Really? Okay.
Vampires, Frankensteins, Draculas, mummies.
I
whatever.
like ghosts and aliens. Ghosts and aliens have always been my
I will note that this is kind of under Disney because Fox is under Disney now, so it's so weird to talk about it this way. But they did show some stuff from Alien Romulus.
Okay.
So yeah, like they're like I said, we're not going to talk about everything, but yeah, I mean, I'm very excited for that movie. But
yeah, I enjoy those movies. I don't care.
Yeah.
Those are the movies I'm unapologetic about.
That's well, there's another really great example, right? Because Alien 4, which is
oh, dude, I love that movie. That might be my favorite Alien movie, actually. Alien Resurrection.
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a really, really good movie. And I love the concepts in it. I actually think that it's like Sigourney Weaver's best performance is Ripley. Even though she's not technically Ripley, she's a clone of Ripley. But
yeah, Ripley clone. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think I go in like reverse order with those movies. Well, maybe not so much reverse order now, but like just talking about straight up Alien movies, not Prometheus, Alien Covenant, or like the AVP movies. But if we go like 4, like 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like 4 is my favorite, I think. I really, really like 3. I think 3 is a really cool movie. And then I like the first one, the original Alien, and then Aliens is actually like my least favorite.
Oh wow. Careful who you say that movies. To.
I know, right? But I'm very similar with the Terminator films as well. Like I prefer the original Terminator over Judgment Day any day of the week. I love the original film because it's so gritty, it's so rough around the edges. But like this is one of those things that we're kind of just talking about movies in general right now. But I love the art of filmmaking. And so the movies that succeed despite the glaring flaws, right? The stories that persist, even though that original outing is like hugely fundamentally flawed, right? Like those are the things that I like. I guess it's just like kind of, cheering for underdogs to a certain degree. But I just like Alien, Predator, Terminator, like these franchises that have gone on to be like these huge, massive things. RoboCop, right? I love those first outings because they're so pure, even though they might have like worse special effects, less of a budget, more straightforward stories, all of that sort of thing. Doesn't matter to me. Like I love the grit and the I don't know, kind of like indie nature of them. Star Wars falls into this category, right? Like A New Hope has a quality to it that the rest of Star Wars lacks because it is like that's George leaving everything on the court, right?
Mm.
He almost killed himself to make that movie. And so for me, like when I watch A New Hope and I see the rubber masks and stuff, I and like they're terrible and they don't move and whatever, it doesn't matter, because it's like it's the vision that matters to me. It's like, what do we do to accomplish the story, right? To get this story across, and do we do everything that we could? And like that to me is more important than it being perfectly polished every time. So I don't know. I don't think that I am a typical moviegoer when it comes to this sort of thing, or like movie fan, but I
You're
just
not like other girls.
yeah, I guess so. But I just like I do like I love the art of making movies. And motion pictures, whether it's big screen, small screen, short, long format, whatever, it doesn't matter.
I think
Just
that's
tell
just a healthier mindset to be in general, is to appreciate. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you're right, because like it's so easy to just like tear stuff down and call something bad or stupid or whatever.
yeah,
It's just like there's less and less people being like, you know what, this wasn't for me, and that's fine. It's not a big
yeah.
deal. I don't think it's bad or like they shouldn't have made it, but I mean, unless we're talking about Ghostbusters 2016, then I might veer into that territory a little
but
bit
you know what,
myself.
like
But
it comes down to story at the end of the day, right?
yeah,
Like that's and
yeah.
that's sort of what I circle back to with it, is that like this is all in service of story. And if your concept is there, your story is there, or lacking that, if you've got great characters, right? And that's where like The Mummy is a good example of that for me. It's like the story is nonsense. The story is pure trash, right? And it's like it's this flawed concept of like, we're going to turn the universal monsters into the next Avengers. We're going to have a shared cinematic universe and they're going to come together to fight some bigger threat. And it's like, I like, that's dumb. That's dumb. It's dumb fun. Like I would have been down for it had they pulled it off. I would have been there, but cause I mean, I am there for the MonsterVerse with Godzilla and Kong and all of this stuff, but I, but it's the characters in that movie that keep me into it. I really really enjoyed Tom Cruise in that movie. I thought that like what he was doing was really fun, and then like Jake Johnson is great, and the bad guy, I can't remember the actress that plays the bad guy, but like the evil mummy. But like it just there's just a lot of really fun character moments in that movie, so it's like it overshadows the bad story, because I'm like, well, whatever, I just want to hang out with these fun characters. Feels like more like a sitcom than it does like a movie sort of thing. But yeah, like that is a character is a type of storytelling. I think I look at it that way, of like, are you building interesting characters that I want to hang out with? That counts for a lot too.
Mm.
And then like, if you can have great visual effects, if you can have really great cinematography, a great score, all of that stuff, then that's great, that's awesome, and it's going to enhance that experience. But if you don't have that story, you're going to end up with Jupiter Ascending, right? Like Jupiter Ascending has all of the flash, it has all of the pomp and circumstance of a Star Wars, or like MCU, like any of these like big tentpole blockbusters. The story and the characters fall flat, and that's why that movie doesn't connect with audiences, right? There's a lot of really cool concepts in it. There's maybe too many cool concepts in it, right, for one movie. But that's why like a movie like that, which despite the Wachowskis being incredibly talented filmmakers, it just like it doesn't work, because at the end of the day the story wasn't tight enough, right? um Whereas like you compare that to the Matrix, to the first Matrix, and it's like you've got great story, great characters, and then it just happens to be enhanced by mind-blowing, groundbreaking special effects and a ridiculous score that cranks it up to 11, right? Like um but yeah, if you don't have the story, if you don't have the characters, then what are we doing here, right? So I don't know. I Yeah, unless it's a horror movie. If it's a horror movie, then it is just pure concept, which is one of those funny, like weird exceptions where it's like you don't have to have good characters. If you have good characters in a horror movie, then it's even better. But you don't
It's
have
a
to.
miracle if you do.
Yeah, yeah. anyways, let's circle back around to a couple of these other things. Okay, so all of that said, everything that I just said, this is why I'm worried about Last Ronin
Hmm.
and then making a live action adaptation of this comic book.
Okay.
I made it 2 issues into the comic. I bought the hardcover because I was like, cool, this conceptually sounds really great, right? So for those who don't know, Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin was a comic book that I flung us way into the future of the Ninja Turtles. All but one of the 4 brothers has died, and so at the very beginning of it, we don't really know who it is, because we don't have the signature colors, right? He's just kind of all in black.
Yeah.
But as we go through it, we discover that it's Michelangelo is the one who has survived, and he is like tormented by this dystopian future that he's in. They basically have not been able to stop the Shredder and Krang and the bad guys, right? So like the bad guys have won, they've taken over the earth. Mutants are everywhere, but like it's also like they're also like second class citizens sort of thing. And Michelangelo is a little bit I this is where it starts to fall apart for me. Okay. So Mikey is, like I said, he's tormented by the death of his brothers, so much so that he is basically talking to their spirits. But it's very clear, or at least it was to me in the 2 issues that I read, that he is not talking to their spirits, that he's just lost it,
Mm.
right? And he is just talking to himself. And I say that because like if he was talking to his brothers would be a lot more gentle with him and they'd be a lot more supportive, because they love him. And there's a lot more of like a vengeance sort of thing going on here. So it is a comic book that has come out within the last like 5 years, but it feels like some of the worst stuff from the mid 90s. It feels like a Todd McFarlane, Edgelord, Spawn, Vengeance, blah 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 sort of storyline. And that's why I only made it 2 issues in, because I was like, this is not like this isn't what I'm hanging out with the Ninja Turtles for. And I don't like anti-hero stories. That it has to be really really good in order to hook me, because like every once in a while you'll get one and I'll be like, okay, yeah, cool, I'm down for this. But with this one, like the comic just did not get me. I am in the minority on that. Most people really like it, but it is one of those like, oh, let's take the Ninja Turtles and make it like mature and edgy. Like, okay, I guess it kind of defeats the purpose of the Ninja Turtles for me, right? That's just my take on it. But yeah, if that's what you want, then that's what you're gonna get. But to me, like I look at this and I go, like, you're gonna make this a movie, it's gonna get even worse than a comic, because like the comic book is allowed to go places that the movie won't be allowed to go, right? Because comic books being a smaller medium and a more niche audience, you have more freedom to tell the type of story that they told with it.
Mm.
They will get rid of any subtlety or nuance that is in the comic, very of which I found very little in the pieces that I read. I will finish it now that the movie's coming out, so that when the movie comes out I can speak a little bit more in a little bit more of an informed way. But yeah, like whatever subtlety and nuance is in that will be lost in the film translation, I guarantee it. And it will turn into an R-rated edgy, because I believe that's their angle, is that like this is going to be like an R-rated live action Ninja Turtles movie to sort of like be the juxtaposition to the Mutant Mayhem like PG like kids fare of the animated stuff, right? um but yeah, I don't know, like if you don't have the story and you don't have the characters, it's gonna be a rough go. I don't care how cool you make a Ninja Turtle. Here's the other thing that they will do, and I guarantee this: Michelangelo is the one that survives in the comic book, and that's at least interesting because Mikey is the carefree, loving one,
Right.
right? The
Always
like
joking
cowabunga,
around
Hakuna
and
Matata type of guy. So you turn that on its head and you turn him into the Punisher, right? It's like, oh, okay, how did Michelangelo get to this? That's at least interesting, right? They will make it Raph, guaranteed,
Oh, you think so?
1,000%. They will make it Raphael,
Hmm.
and it will lose any meaning that it had, and it will just be an R-rated Ninja Turtle stabbing stuff. Like that's what that movie is gonna like. I have very little faith in it. I'm gonna set my expectations super low, and hopefully I am wrong. And I mean that sincerely. Like I go into a project like this and I go like, this is not for me as a Ninja Turtles fan, because it's not what I want. And B, like I don't like this type of story, this type of movie to begin with. But I do give it the leeway of the room to prove me completely wrong, and I hope that it does, because like I said before, like I pay the ticket for the movie. I want to have a good time. I want to, and when I don't, it's disappointing more than anything, right? Like as a sort of mature adult, as mature an adult can be when they're surrounded by toys talking about Ninja Turtles on a podcast. That's my response when a movie isn't good nowadays, is like, I'm very disappointed by this. It's very upsetting.
I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I don't know, like it feels like wrong lessons learned from things. But at the same time,
I think there is a chance that it will be better than you think it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a big chance. There's a big chance.
Try to do what you always do. Try to look at the positives on it.
Yeah,
it's cool we're getting another Ninja Turtles movie. Yeah, it's not the one that you want, but you know what? Maybe it'll be good. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're a ways off on this one. Like they just announced that they're working on this, and I think maybe they've got writer or director attached.
You had said something before that it almost sounded like you don't think it's going to actually get made, or did I misunderstand what you were?
Yeah. Well, this is so far off, and this is one of those announcements that comes out, and you're like, really, wow, right? But whether or not it gets made, or whether or not it ends up taking on a completely different form at some point and then coming out, I don't know. I am skeptical of an announcement like this, just because it goes so against the grain of what the franchise means to the general public, right? I think like for us as like hardcore fans of things, we have that ability to compartmentalize and go like, okay, well, this is obviously an Elseworlds, right? But I expect that the studio will get cold feet on this one. When they start to get back the actual creative on this, and it starts going in the direction that I think that it's going to go, I think that they will pivot, if not pull the plug. Like that's just my gut on this. But it's that's a symptom of me like looking at, like all the Marvel movies that get announced that don't end up happening or end up turning into something else. And certainly Star Wars has been really, really rife with this over the last 5 years, right? Of like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to announce this. And then like these things just disappear. They just quietly disappear sometimes, and other times very loudly disappear. And sometimes what happens is like they announce that Josh Trank is going to make a movie. We don't know what that is. It's rumored that it's Boba Fett, and eventually that turns into Book of Boba Fett, right? Like eventually, eventually it turns into The Mandalorian, which eventually turns into the Book of Boba Fett, right? So like that's sort of the way that I'm looking at this, is that like Paramount's taking a big swing with this announcement, and they're going to get. Okay, here's the real crux of it. The purpose of these announcements is not to tell us what movies they're making. Don't be fooled by that, because I think that that's the trap that a lot of fans are falling into in the last 5 years, is that they think that when these announcements made, that it has anything to do with artistic integrity and what the studio wants to make from an artistic standpoint to release to an audience. It's got nothing to do with that. These announcements at Cinemacon, at Comic-Con, at Disney Plus Day, or New York Comic-Con, whatever excuse they have to make an announcement, they are to move the number on a stock ticker. That's what this is for. The people who make these announcements, that's their job. Bob Iger's job is not to make cool movies or like enhance the theme parks or put out merch that we want to buy. That's not his job. There are people way, way, way below him. It's their jobs, right? Even Kevin Feige, it's not his job, right? Kevin Feige's job is to make sure that Bob Iger is happy and that the stock price goes up, right? Kevin Feige executes that by bringing in creatives to make movies, right, and TV shows and merchandise tie-ins and blah 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 and theme park stuff. Like that. That's the how that works. And so Bob Iger is not beholden to the fans or the audience. Bob Iger is beholden to the shareholders. That is literally his job. I don't mean this in like in order to keep his job, he's got no, it's like literally his job, legally speaking. If he makes decisions that affect the stock in a negative way, like let's say we found out that he did something on purpose to affect the stock in a negative way, right? Like he would be legally liable for that decision as the CEO of Disney, right? So they are not answering to us. They're not answering to artistic integrity. They're not even answering to God. They're answering to shareholders, and the shareholders, all they care about is I mean, for the most part, is stock price go up, right? Like they just want to see that number green when they log in to their app in the morning to check their stocks. That is all that they care about. And when they sit on those investor calls, that's what the calls are about. And the questions might take on different aspects of like, oh, this or that, right? Like, oh, how are you addressing this social thing or whatever, right? This news that's out there. What they're really asking is like, how are you making sure that this is doing as little damage to the brand and the stock price as possible? And what are we going to do to recover from this? That's what's being asked when those questions are asked. Sometimes it looks like they take on the appearance of like, how are you addressing the negativity around Star Wars having a female protagonist, right? It's like, that's not, they don't actually want Bob Iger to be like, and this is why there's like a disconnect with the answers that are given and the responses of like fans who are like, well, what he should say is that like, we're committed to representation and diversity in Star Wars and blah blah blah. Like that's what should be said, because from an artistic point, from a point of integrity, that's what you would expect. I In the year 2024. But then the answer is often like, well, we're exploring a lot of avenues in order to make sure that everybody is represented in the films that they like to see, and we're really listening to the audience, and the audience is giving us great feedback. What that means is a bunch of trolls on the internet tanked 2 movies, and I mean, they didn't tank 2 movies, they only really tanked 1 movie, but like they talked so poorly about 1 movie that it tanked the next movie. And so now we're not going to have the same approach that we had to our films previously, right? Like, because what it is all about is stock price go up. So TMNT The Last Ronin is a big swing. It's a big swing for Paramount to make stock price go up. That's what that is. The executives who greenlit that project did it because they said, we can go to CinemaCon and we will probably see a major like immediate return in dividend on the like it's like, and I am not a finance guy, so I'm probably using wrong terms and stuff like that, but whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like that is what that decision was. And so then they're like, okay, attach a name to it. And you see this with all of these decisions that get made nowadays. It has nothing to do with like, this creator wants to tell this story. It has to do with, these are big names that people recognize. When we put out the press release, stock price go up. That is what it always is about with this corporate stuff and with these convention announcements. So when you take that perspective and then you look at TMNT The Last Ronin, do they really care to make this movie? No. Paramount doesn't care to make this movie. Paramount as a corporation does not care to make this movie. Paramount as a corporation did some research, looked at the algorithms, and discovered that people talk about The Last Ronin a lot. and that of all of the comics that have come out in the last little while, it has the most buzz, right? Compared to the other ones. I don't know what sales are like for the IDW Ninja Turtles comics, but I imagine because of the buzz that Last Ronin sold a lot more than Turtles comics are, since the Rebirth era that they're in right now, of like they kind of finished off the main story of Ninja Turtles, and then like they kind of soft, they didn't really reboot it, but they kind of brought it back to number one, right? So that people could jump on, new jumping on point. And I would imagine that Last Ronin is doing better than that, because there's a lot of female characters in Ninja Turtles Reborn, not Rebirth, Reborn. And like Jenica, who is one of my favorite Ninja Turtles characters, is like front and center for a lot of it. And so yeah, like you get the response that you would expect to get from that sort of thing. So yeah, so I like, they literally just did like a keyword search. Last Ronin shows up as the highest thing with Ninja Turtles, probably in response to Mutant Mayhem. A lot of people were like, I don't know why they're doing these silly cartoon Ninja Turtles. They need to do here are the hashtags, live action Ninja Turtles Last Ronin comic adaptation. And that was it. Like, that was the end of it. And they're like, yep, let's do that. Stock price go up. So yeah, will we actually see this movie come out as a film, as a live action feature film? Maybe there is a chance that we could get it, but is it more likely that this ends up being like a Paramount Plus TV series? I think that's probably the avenue that this one ends up on. And so I don't know, like mark the date. It's April 15th at 10:21 a.m. Pacific time when I made that statement. Will this Last Ronin project end up being a Paramount Plus series? I'm probably not even live action, probably animated. Like I imagine that that's what it'll end up being, as opposed to being a feature film. But I don't know, I am wrong all the time, despite the way that I present myself as being right 100% of the time.
Well,
I do make the, like, I'm making a big statement, taking a big swing by saying that I don't think that this movie will necessarily come out. But I yeah, like this year is full of movies that I'm like, wait, what? Right? Like one of these other ones is Transformers 1, right? Where they're like, well, we're doing a fully animated Transformers feature film. And then you see like the cast on this one of, like, you know, like Chris Hemsworth is Optimus Prime. I'm like, yeah, totally
what?
there, 1,000%. The cast on this movie is ridiculous for Transformers 1, dude. It's crazy. And people, I get, I are really into what they saw. So yeah, Chris Hemsworth. Brian Tyree Henry is voicing, let's see,
I I don't know Transformers characters, so I mean, I imagine
yeah.
you're reading this for the audience, but I'm gonna be like,
um
okay, I know Bumblebee and I know Optimus Prime.
Yeah, so this article is not giving me the information that I want to give to you guys, but yeah, I mean, Hemsworth is playing young Optimus Prime, and the tone of this is like a lot more lighthearted. Scarlett Johansson's in it as well. It's Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne, John Hamm. Like,
What?
it's a crazy star-studded cast. Yeah, but yeah, I'm hopefully we get to see something from this soon, because I think like that'll be what this movie looks like. I think will be the deciding factor on a lot of it. I Because if it's got a cool visual appeal, then people will be there for it. But it's got a great cast, and I'm excited. This is the direction that they should have been going with Transformers for a long time, right? I love Bumblebee, but I they should have stopped after the third Transformers live action film and pivoted to animated features a long time ago. Because the two that came after Bumblebee, it's I don't know, the one with the dinosaurs in it, and then I refuse to call them Dinobots. They're not the Dinobots. They're just dinosaurs. They're just robot
The
dinosaurs.
Beast Wars.
Well, they did the dinosaur one, and then they did the Last Night, which I've never even seen, and then they did the most recent one, the Beast Wars one, which is apparently also terrible. And in between those, they did Bumblebee, and then like this new the Rise of the I don't know. It's like some, it's one of these stupid movie titles, a workshopped movie title that doesn't actually make any sense. I in between they did Bumblebee, and it was supposed to be like a sequel to Bumblebee, but then it's really just another one of these like awful. Oh, the whole world is gonna end, and Optimus Prime is the only one that can stop it with his Autobot buddies, and it's like you guys missed the boat on this one. Like the reason why Bumblebee is loved by fans is because it's not one of those stories. It is like this small personal story. Bumblebee is such a good movie, you guys. Bumblebee is such a good movie. It is by far the best Transformers live action film. Like by leaps and bounds, and also like John Cena's first like big franchise thing, and he's so good in that. He has the great line of like, "Are we gonna trust these guys? They're literally called Decepticons." Like he says that in the movie, and everybody just kind of like waves him off. And yeah, John Cena is so good. But yeah, let's talk about the one of these that I think that you probably want to talk about the most. Which is these Avatar animated films.
Yeah.
You are a recent Avatar convert. We're gonna talk more about it.
Yeah.
But you're like way into this world now, hey?
Perfect timing for this news, man. Let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Avatar is like massive in this moment. It's so funny. I think that James Cameron's Avatar wants to be as big as the animated Avatar, the Last Airbender world is at the moment. The live action series was a little bit divisive, but I think overall successful based on the fact that Netflix greenlit seasons 2 and 3. I basically immediately after the release of season 1, which is great because it means that like the Aang story will get its conclusion, right? Like we can rest assured that we're gonna get that full series, instead of worrying season to season about it, which is nice for a change. Or them just like canceling it and then deleting it from the service like Disney would do. um
Shots fired.
yeah, but going back to the animated stuff, I think is like this. That's what's really interesting to me is it's been a very long time since we've gotten anything animated from Avatar,
When did
from this
when did
world.
Korra finish?
So Korra is 4 seasons. I want to say that that's like that was like a 2015 sort of thing. I don't know. I don't actually know off the top of my head.
I'm gonna quickly check. Let's see. List of Korra episodes, season 4,
Yeah,
December 19th, 2014.
there we go. So I was pretty close. I yeah. So yeah. It's been a decade. It's been a decade since we've had animated Avatar. And there's been lots of comics. There's been like it's not the franchise didn't go dormant for a decade. It was out there doing stuff. The role playing game is hugely successful. Like the tabletop RPG is hugely successful.
I did not know that this existed. I'm
Yeah,
I'm still learning everything. Like,
you're brand new to this fandom, and I
yeah,
like
this
that is so interesting to me. It's
yeah.
so much fun to watch you discover this because it is so up your alley, as we've talked about before, right? Like it's so up your alley. It's anime influenced. It's I like it's a mythic story. It's a cartoon. Like it
It's
yeah,
gorgeous. It's
it's gorgeous.
beautifully
Yeah.
animated. Like,
Yeah, it's funny as well as like heartfelt,
the
and the
characters are so
action.
lovable, man.
Yeah, the action is like off the hook. Like it's so up your alley. I can't wait for you to check out Korra.
Mm.
But I it's funny to see you coming into it now, like in the midst of it getting this sort of rebirth. But But they
And I
announced
didn't.
they announced 3 movies, right? Like they're
Yes,
doing a
yeah.
trilogy of films about Aang as an adult. So this is gonna like fill in some of the gaps between Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. Um, there's a lot of stuff that happens immediately after Airbender that has been covered in comics, but that adult stuff, we only really know the pieces that were given in Legend of Korra through the characters that are still around, through the
Mhm.
ones that are sort of still alive and there to tell those stories.
So let me
Um,
ask you: are the
yeah,
comics considered canon? Were they just made because hey, we want to tell more Avatar stories and there's an audience for it, so we're doing it? And then, or are the movies going to kind of come and steamroll stuff, or is that like not really known yet?
I think it's not really known. I
Okay,
would say the comics are considered canon as they
for
are
now. Okay,
released, right?
okay,
In the way that comics generally are treated, right?
sure.
Um, it's like I we just got the new trailer for Star Wars Outlaws, right?
Hmm.
And it's very clearly taking place in between Empire and Jedi, which the Marvel comics have been heavily in for the last few years, like since 2020. And War of the Bounty Hunters was a massive thing for that involved like Kira and Han and Carbonite and all of like a bunch of stuff happens, and Star Wars Outlaws in the trailer like shows Han and Carbonite as part of it, and then like the Game Informer article showed Kira, that she'll be in the game, and I'm sitting there going like, so the comics aren't canon anymore then? Like the comics are like then throw out your War of the Bounty Hunters. There's going to be so many people angry when this game releases because it's got a female protagonist, so it's already got marks against it. So it's like a theme of this episode. Um they're already sitting by their keyboards foaming at the mouth waiting, right? Also she's a person of color. Whoa, 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 whoa,
Right.
whoa. So it's a 2 for 1.
Well,
They're gonna have a field day with it when it comes time to to roast this game. I think it'll be completely unwarranted. It looks incredible. Like it looks beautiful. Gameplay looks fun. Story looks interesting. But it is going to steamroll War of the Bounty Hunters, which is like edgelord Star Wars fan fodder, right? Like that's why they put that out, was for like all of the guys who are like, Book of Boba Fett, I don't want soft Boba Fett. So like, well, here's Boba Fett and a bunch of other bounty hunters all fighting each other for a bunch of issues of this comic, and like Kira is integral in that story. So if they are going to involve any of that into this video game, that's gonna rewrite canon, and it's a higher level of canon because it's a video game. So I because comics are not treated with as much respect as video game releases are, and video games aren't treated with as much respect as a TV series, and a TV series isn't treated with as much respect as a movie, right? Like it's just the way that it is. Like accept it and move on. Canon is stupid anyways. Like the whole concept of canon is dumb. Stories are stories. Um, so yeah, back to Avatar. The comics as they were released, because there were no shows happening at the. I mean, I think maybe some of the Last Airbender stuff was happening when Korra was on. I think that's when they started those comics, but like they tell like further stories that some of them were like literally to like fill in gaps, or not really fill in gaps, but like as like lead in stories to things that would happen in Korra. So I think that there's a story about, because a lot of them were released in like this digest format, um and one of them I think was about Toph, and it like uh informs a bunch of stuff that we'd learn in Korra, right? Basically, like fills in things that are like backstory of some of those episodes. I and then there's a story about like Zuko's mother, because that's a thread that is left dangling at the end of that series, right?
mm.
So there's a bunch of stuff like that, and like characters have like redemption arcs, and like further stuff happens. Um, and Korra
Interesting.
does reference a bunch of the stuff that's in the comics. So like
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of neat.
yeah, so like in ways that are like very vague, right? Like in ways that leave a lot of room, but yeah, like I believe that it's all meant to be canon. but that
Okay,
like
cool.
these stories of adult Aang will be like far enough removed from that because all those comics take place immediate. Like they are like roll credits on Avatar book 3, right? Last Airbender book 3, and then like the Zuko and his like with his mother and all that. So like that storyline picks up like pretty much like weeks after,
Okay.
right? I haven't read all of them. Like I read a bunch of them back in the day, but yeah, I don't really remember a ton of it. I don't know.
Okay.
I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, but like I don't know. I haven't like committed as much of it to memory as I have other franchises.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm excited for these movies.
Yeah,
I
I
like
I'm excited that I figured, oh, this came and went. I missed the boat on all of it. Whatever. I'm enjoying it now. It's really cool. I'm glad I'm getting to see it. So it's kind of cool to hear like, oh, there's some stuff on the ground level that everybody's going to be enjoying together. So
yeah
that's pretty neat.
yeah. So let's see. I'm just looking at the rest of this cast. I mean, Batista is the big announcement here. I don't know if we're supposed to know who Eric Nam is, but that's who's voicing adult Aang. Um, but yeah, I'm down for it. I'm down for more Avatar stuff, especially like adult Avatar stuff. I think that'll be fun to get into. But like Avatar is a big part of Fortnite right now as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, I'm having a great time with that. So we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But were there any of these other things that you wanted to dig into, or do you want to jump into the next
No,
story?
I really didn't see any of it, so
Yeah,
it was all news to me in the first
it. I
place.
mean, like this
So,
is all these are all this stuff was like behind closed doors sort of thing, right?
mm,
So nobody's seen any of this stuff. This is all just like reports of like what people got to see.
okay,
And this isn't even really like a press event as much as it's like I say, it's for the theater
sure,
exhibitioners, right?
yeah.
So uh exhibitioners, I don't know what the proper term is there. Exhibitors, I think. But yeah, like it's for them, so they get to see it first and that sort of
Mm.
thing. Okay, next story is X-Men 97's fifth episode.
Huh,
Absolutely destroying the internet. Now,
huh.
I don't want to like let's not get into spoilers here.
Oh my god.
Because
Okay.
I just want to like talk about X-Men 97 for a second and just to make sure that people are aware that the show is like the best thing that Marvel has done. um you guys know me. You know I love the MCU. You know I love Endgame and everything that like leads up to it. The decade long 20 movie journey to get to Endgame, I think is like unparalleled in film. And it's one of those things where it's like because it's pop culture and because it's pulp and it's for a general audience, it's never going to get the respect that it deserves in the same way that Star Wars never gets the respect that it deserves for what it did for films. At the same time, X-Men 97 and the 5 episodes that we have gotten of this series has taken the level of storytelling that I think that we want to see in the MCU, and what we get from the MCU when it's at its best, stuff like Civil War, stuff like Endgame. In my opinion, Iron Man 3. I know not everybody agrees with that one, but like when those movies are at their best, X-Men 97 has done basically like 3 weeks in a row. Well, no, maybe not, because the week before, the fourth episode was good. I liked it a lot, but it was kind of a little bit of a breather before going into the fifth episode. So that premiere week, those first 2 episodes were like slap you in the face. The X-Men are super cool, and then Magneto is a total badass. That third episode was like, oh, we're gonna go places, you guys. Like it was like the precursor for like, you thought that this was gonna be like the kids cartoon. No, this one is for you guys that grew up, right? Like it was very much signaling us and letting us know that it was going to be serious. The fourth episode, like I said, is like a pacing breather, and I think that it's appropriate. Like get everybody to just sort of like chill out for a second, because going into the fifth episode crams as much storytelling into I don't know what the runtime is, but like it's a half an hour show, right? It crams it into that half-hour runtime, as like most of these MCU films cram into a three movie character arc, right? Like it when I think back on all of the characters that are featured in the episode, let me just list them off. So, front and center, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit. Nightcrawler shows up for the first time in X-Men '97. We get to see Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw. We get to see Moira McTaggart. We get to see oh man, who else like sort of cameos? I mean, we get a bunch of New Mutant cameos. They're not super meaningful, but they're there. But then we also get uh, featured moments with Jean, Scott, Logan, right? They all get moments that are like character defining in this episode, all crammed into this thing, and it doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like it's too much. I mean, like if you go onto our social media, I've posted what is my favorite moment from the episode, which is a Cyclops moment. Big surprise, but in an episode with so many great things. But Cyclops has a monologue that is like, I said going into this, I did the off the record episode where I talked about Cyclops and him being my favorite X-Man, and I feel like he's super underappreciated and nobody gets him and all of that sort of thing. And this is the character. They pulled all of that stuff that I feel has been like lost in like the live action and all of the animated stuff that's come out thus far, and they crammed it into like one monologue that's like it's like a minute long scene. And Cyclops says the stuff that like he did, like the sort of thing that he does in the comics when he gets kind of like pushed to the edge. And he has that moment, and it's just like it is so good. But then like the moment between Jean and Logan is like incredible, and then the moment between Scott and Jean is incredible, and then like the third act of this episode is as big, bombastic, and well executed and meaningful as anything that the MCU has accomplished. Anything like, and that I include like Iron Man dying in Endgame, like it, like
Yeah.
the way that this episode just like rocked the fandom over the last week, and like it was palpable, dude. It's this show is so good, and the creators of it, like like the showrunner and the writers and stuff were like, oh guys, this was the start. This is like the prelude. This is the show ramping up to what it's gonna do over the course of the next couple of weeks. And so yeah, like I think like the 3-part finale, I like, because the last 3 episodes are like part 1, 2, and 3. um I don't know. I can't even imagine what we're in for, because like what they did in the 5th episode is a season finale, right? Like in its own
Yeah.
right. Like that was enough for a season finale. Yeah, so good. The show is so good. I love it so much. You talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, it was brutal. I kind of walked into it. I mean, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit last week. Like, I never really was so in love with the original cartoon, like the
Yeah.
original animated series, but like I liked it. I enjoyed it as a kid, so I was excited to see that they were bringing it back, and I was pumped. I was not expecting this show to be like the most anticipated thing from week to week. And like now it's just 1,000. Like it's just cranked to 1,000 after last week.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't realize it was only 10 episodes. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was that short.
Yeah.
But oh god, dude, it's so good, man. So next week is Life Death Part 2, which we got a little bit of like Life Death Part 1 was just like the last 10 minutes of episode 4, right? I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Okay, so safe to assume what we're going to be seeing with that. There was another character cameo in the list in this episode that we're not going into spoilers, so I won't. But you missed one, and I was surprised by it. And we had talked about this character before, and I didn't actually know a lot of um their backstory, so that was like, oh, okay. And then it's it's good. This is a good show, man. If you're not watching it, you need to be watching this show.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say without spoiling anything, but
For
yeah,
sure. Yeah. It's tough.
this
It's tough. But I like, because I want to like make sure that people who haven't watched
yes,
it
no,
yet
I
get
agree. I
onto it.
agree.
I
Yeah,
don't want to ruin this one episode
for
because
sure.
like,
No,
yeah.
yeah, especially. And
Um,
it's everywhere. And that's the frustrating thing. It was everywhere
yeah.
within hours. And I have friends who have not started it yet, who by some miracle have not been spoiled yet. And Tina was not spoiled yet. I was like, whatever you're doing, you go watch this first, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do on the internet. So it's really frustrating, man, that like people only care about their clicks and they're
Yeah.
getting
We
their
don't even, yeah.
clicks. Like
Yeah.
it's so stupid. It's
We
so
don't even get 24 hours anymore.
there's
Right.
no
Like,
etiquette anymore.
yeah.
But even like official channels are doing it. I don't know if they
Yeah.
did for this, but like Star Wars is always has like Hayden Christensen was on all of the social media as soon as that first episode with him
Yeah.
aired.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah,
frustrating.
it is. But that's like that's just the nature of the internet world that we live in now, right? The social media world where everything is like instantaneous and it's got to be plastered everywhere. And like you said, it's about clicks, right? We got to get those clicks. So, yeah. If it listen, this is the other part of it, and I don't know. Again, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I don't think I am. X-Men 97 is going to be important for the MCU. It is. In the same way that What If is important for the MCU. And if you've been skipping out on What If, you're making a mistake. Like, you are going to come into Secret Wars and there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you are going to be out of the loop on. If you are not watching What If. But yeah, like there are indicators in this fifth episode for me that like they're not indicators for me, they're confirmations of how I've been feeling about X-Men 97 and about all of the X-Men stuff. And you guys have heard me talk about this a million times on a bunch of different things. Like, I firmly believe that the X-Men sting that we get in Miss Marvel at the end of the series, right? Because we get the X-Men 97 theme at the end of Miss Marvel when we find out that she's a mutant. And then the post-credit scene in the Marvels. Like the it's been long enough now that this is not a spoiler. You've had your opportunity. It's on Disney Plus. We see Beast, and he's voiced by Kelsey Grammer, who played him in X-Men 3: The Last Stand, right? The live action version. But the music that we hear in that scene is X-Men 97. And I firmly believe that like that is the live action version of the X-Men 97 Beast. And it's just that like Kelsey Grammer was cast as Beast because of the performance in X-Men the animated series, right? Like he doesn't get that role without that character being performed the way that he was in that. Like they're not different versions of the character. Like they're very much meant to be the same. So yeah, like I like I said, like I firmly believe that X-Men is the same one as these ones that we're talking about in X-Men 97, and that the 3 seasons of X-Men 97, because we know that there's 2 more seasons that have been greenlit.
Oh, really? So there's 2
I
more
believe
X-Men
so. Yeah.
97 seasons? Oh, that's awesome.
Because the showrunner, I should bring up his name because he deserves to be named, and I need to like commit it to memory. We know, like, because he was fired, right? Like that was the whole Bo DeMaio
Right.
was fired before the season started airing. He, like, they have said that like season 2 is like written, right? So like season 1 they've made, it's out. Season 2 they are making, and they just haven't announced that season 2 is like official, but they will at the end of the series, at the end of the season, right? So the implication was like he was there for the writing of season 1 and 2, and now they've gotten like they kicked him out in season 2 during production, and in the lead up to writing season 3, which is why if you go back to the episode where we talked about this, I had said that like I think that this was like a creative differences thing revolving around how they have to integrate everything in 97 into the MCU, that like or that it's possible that season 3 takes place post MCU Secret Wars integration, right? And that he that's not what he signed up for,
Mm.
right? Is because like now it's all of a sudden part of this corporate thing and everything has to be cleared for whatever, right? Because this is very much like season 1 is very much to me like a continuation of the original animated series and sort of like fulfilling the promise of that. And then I think that season 2 will very much be like transitioning and getting the characters ready for what's going to happen in Secret War. And then season 3 to me, I would bet is like post MCU integration. Like
Mm.
once, because Secret War is going to change the status quo. If that weren't the case, and if the X-Men weren't going to be integrated via Secret War, we would have gotten an X-Men movie already before Fantastic Four.
Mm.
Like I don't see a world where Fantastic Four gets to go first unless there's like a larger plan here with like X-Men 97 and them like very clearly wanting us to connect this show with the X-Men that will be live action on screen post Secret War. Like, and that's why Secret War is happening. And I think one of the things that probably happened, and the reason why I might be repeating myself because I think maybe I said some of this stuff already, but just to reiterate, like I think that what happened is like all of this Jonathan Majors stuff happened and Kang is like out. We're not doing that anymore. So Avengers 5 Kang Dynasty is not happening. And I think that Secret War is going to move up. Like I think that they're just going to like the slot that they've got for Kang Dynasty is just going to be Secret War. And so I think like that shifted the timeline and that there were like 3 seasons planned for this show. And now it's like, well, the 3rd season will come out after Secret War. So you need to change the story. And I think that that was the creative differences. And I don't think that Bo DeMaio is going to come back as much as fans
Okay.
are now like calling for him to be reinstated. I don't know. I don't know. This is obviously all wild speculation on my part, but I look at sort of reading between the lines on this stuff, and I'm like, most of the time when these creatives are like when they bow out, especially when something is going to be is really good or is going to be successful, and they take off, or are fired, summarily dismissed, it's because of the larger sort of scheme, right? Like what do we have planned for the bigger MCU, right? So it's like Edgar Wright was a really great example of that with Ant-Man. He wanted to make an Ant-Man movie and he had his vision for it, and they were like, no, this is an Avengers character. Like, no, like you need to keep it in tone, you need to keep it in line, and you need to fit these things into your story so that it meshes with everything else. And he was like, no thanks, and walked away from it, right? I like that's sort of been every time that it's happened, we look back at it and we go like, oh, it's because that character is like slated for these bigger things, right? And then the character goes on to be an integral part of things. I mean, Ant-Man's super important to Infinity War and Endgame. Well, not Infinity War, but Endgame. Right. So like I see that writing on the wall of like, this is where this is going. So and like what if and certain things in this 5th episode, like there are I just don't see putting connective tissue in there just for funsies Easter eggs. I don't think that that's the case. I think that the connective tissue is there for a reason. It's meant to be there, and we're supposed to be speculating on this stuff. We're supposed to be talking about it and going like, what does that mean, right? So I don't know when X-Men 97 is done. we'll be doing an episode of a very old podcast that we haven't done an episode in a long time, but Nuff Said, which is sort of the ThunderQuack Marvel MCU podcast. So yeah, I've already talked to Curtis and he's down. But Joe, if you want to join us on that one, we will
Yeah,
get
sure.
into like the full on spoilers
Cool.
discussion and deeper into my theories about this stuff. But I suspect that as we go through the rest of this season, that it's only going to get more and more clear that what's going on here.
Did you see the like mid-season teaser?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I know that it's out there, and I haven't like sought it out yet.
Okay.
But yeah, because
Okay.
actually, I shouldn't say that. There's like a brief one maybe that I saw though, and it does have. This is a teaser. It's out there, so this is not spoilers. It ends with Cap's shield. Is that the one that you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. We already knew that. That's
did
not
we?
news.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's not news. So
Okay.
like before the series even premiered, Bo DeMaio had said that like because people asked like will we see cameos, because obviously like Spider-Man, Captain America, Doctor Strange, a few characters showed up over the course of X-Men the animated series in crossovers. I don't know that Spider-Man ever showed up on X-Men. I think we talked about this, but I think the X-Men were obviously on Spider-Man.
Yes.
During the what's that? What's the saga?
The
When he
man
like mutates
spider.
again. Yeah. There's a name for it though. Like I can't remember what they call it.
Sins of the
Mutagenesis
Fathers,
or something.
was that it?
I don't
Maybe.
remember.
I don't know.
But they showed up during that one when he like eventually turns into Man Spider and all of that. But I don't remember if Spider-Man ever showed up on their show. I don't think that he did. But Captain America, a handful of characters show up in X-Men the animated series, and so he was asked like, will we see any of these characters return? And he was like, there's a good chance, sort of thing. So everybody was like, okay, so we're gonna see. So yeah. Well, so like now we kind of know we're gonna see Cap, but which Cap we don't know. All we saw was a shield. Could mean a lot of things. You guys. Yeah. But based on the way that Scott talked to that reporter in that one scene, we might yet get to see one of my favorite exchanges, which is Scott Summers dressing down Captain America, who's like, we're here to help, and with Scott being like, you're here to help. You weren't there when this happened or that happened or that happened. But now it's important to you. Which is from Avengers versus X-Men, which is my favorite Marvel storyline. So, yeah. I'm excited for the rest of this season, dude. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Tuesday night at midnight, I'll be there.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Good.
Last couple of pieces of news. This one's real quick. This was just announced this morning. To no one's surprise, Star Wars is doing another integration with Fortnite for Star Wars Day. This is now an annual thing. We get new characters, we get new stuff. But the big part here is now we've got Lego Fortnite, Fortnite Festival, and Rocket Racing. Interestingly, in the teaser that they put out, Lego Fortnite gets called out. Fortnite Festival gets called out, which is like the Guitar Hero music game, right? And Battle Royale gets called out, but Rocket Racing is not included. So I think like you can very easily imply there will not be any like car skins or anything like that. The thing with that is that almost everything that goes into Rocket Racing also has to go into Rocket League. So they've done Star Wars stuff in Rocket League. I'm fairly certain. Like I'm like 99.9% sure they've already done Star Wars stuff for Rocket League, but that it's like I think it's like a larger thing they'd have to work out. But the big thing for me is that they're saying Lego Fortnite, and in my off the record episode, which people can listen to because it's one of the ones that's on the public feed, where I talk about Lego Fortnite. That was like my thing coming out of Lego Fortnite. I was like, okay, you got like they released kits finally of like, oh, you can buy this kit and expand the things that you can build in Lego Fortnite. And I was like, so the next logical step for that, what I want to see are licensed themed kits, right? Like I want to be able to build Star Wars stuff inside Lego Fortnite. And so obviously that's what's coming. That's what's
Mm.
coming, along with whatever the new skins are and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like I'm curious what the new skins will be, because we're kind of in between stuff. It's possible they could do a bunch of Bad Batch skins. I doubt it. I
That'd be
doubt
neat.
it.
I don't
It'd
see
be
it
rad.
happening, but that'd be
Um,
dope.
most likely it'll be Acolyte stuff, I think. But my wish list is Star Wars Rebels, is for them to drop a bunch of Star Wars Rebels characters.
Here's one that I expect to be not even remotely correct. If we're right about our Ventress is the next show, if it's announced on May 4th, guess what? You're also getting Ventress skin in Fortnite. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a very possible one, actually. I think that's a good call. Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards like if they're gonna do anything that's promotional for upcoming stuff, it'll be Acolyte.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right,
But nobody knows those characters yet, so why would you buy a skin, right?
sure. Yeah.
So that's the thing that kind of, it's like when they did promotional for Ahsoka, that made sense because we already knew Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, like, it could be more characters from Ahsoka. Like, we could get Sabine, we could get Shin and Balin, right? Like, those would all be great skins to get. I expect that it's just going to be more movie characters that we haven't gotten yet. So, like, it could be, I could see them doing a 2 or 3 pack involving like Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and Plo Koon, right? They love that. They love that, especially like Phantom Menace is another thing, like where it's like, okay, so Darth Maul is already there, but we don't have Qui-Gon. We don't have a Qui-Gon skin yet, so we could get Qui-Gon. I don't think that we'll get little kid Anakin because that doesn't make sense because of proportions. But we've already gotten Padme. They might expand the Padme skin or do, like, I don't know if they would do like a second Padme skin. And we do have an Obi-Wan skin, but he is Obi-Wan from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So to get a Phantom Menace Obi-Wan skin would be cool. But I expect that it'll be that. I mean, those 3 characters that I just named, Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and Plo Koon, make the most sense. That makes the most sense to me, of like characters that we don't have yet that are easy to just like drop in, not really attached to anything else. So we've already gotten so many clone troopers, stormtroopers, whatnot, right? But yeah, I don't think it'll be sequel characters, and we have the big 3 from the original trilogy.
It's obviously going to be Delta Squad.
So yeah, obviously it's going to be Delta Squad.
Finally.
And yeah, I don't know. Actually, the more that I think about it, Bad Batch is actually kind of likely. Because if you did Bad Batch, you'd be able to do them with their like Clone Force 99 red and black, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd also be able to do like an alternate, like unlockable, because I'm guessing that there's probably going to be like a mini battle pass thing, right? Because they're really loving doing these, like, you've got the season battle pass, but then we're going to do like the Avatar one that's going right now, because it keeps people in the game, right? It's like, oh, there's a bunch of quests that you got to do and you unlock stuff. So like when you buy that pass, you get Aang, but if you want to unlock Aang's Avatar state version, then you have to complete all of the quests, right? Which keeps you in there week after week, coming back to complete the quests. So if they did one of those, it would make a lot of sense to do Bad Batch. I just don't think that they'll do all 5 characters. So it's like they'll do Hunter and Crosshair. Or what they would do is probably Hunter in the actually, you know what they'll probably do if they did Bad Batch, the smart thing I think to do would be to do Asajj as the I can't remember what they call them, because there's a name for them, like the event pass, right? Maybe they don't have like a general name for it. I think each one has like its own name for whatever the event is called. So like if like they do a Bad Batch pass, it's like you put Asajj in there, and it's like it's her Bad Batch outfit, but then if you complete the pass, you would unlock her Clone Wars outfit or something, right?
Cool.
Um, and then Hunter and Crosshair would be the one that you pay for, that you go like you buy those two characters, but it won't be Tekken Wrecker. They wouldn't put Tekken Wrecker front and center. And Echo, get out of here. They wouldn't do Echo, but I can see them doing it because the Lego minifigs already exist.
Right. Yeah.
For Bad Batch. So like everything that they're doing, you have to also now think like, well, okay, so they're also doing a Lego version. But I'll tell you what I would love to see more than anything, other than Kanan. I mean, Kanan is the number one thing that I would like to see because he's Kanan. So if there's an opportunity, just put Kanan in it. But what I would really like to see is what they've done with the Marvel characters and the DC characters, where we've gotten comic accurate versions or like comic inspired versions, but then every once in a while we get the Fortnite version of it. So like one of my favorite skins is my Wolverine. I what Zero? Yeah, I think they call it's like Wolverine Zero is what it is, and it's like story wise, like it's the idea of like Wolverine is stuck in the Fortnite universe, right? And so like he's got his parts of his comic outfit, but then he's also like strapped up with other things, and like he's modified his outfit to match the Fortnite world, sort of. And they did it with Batman. They've done it with a handful of characters. And so yeah, like I would love to see them do that with Star Wars. I don't know that they will because I don't know that Lucasfilm lets people play with the characters in that way. But to get like an Obi-Wan Zero or like to get Obi-Wan and Anakin like but Fortniteified, where it's like they've got their Clone Wars armor, but then like they've got like Fortnite like weapons and stuff like that, like grenades and that sort of thing attached to them, would be really, really cool. It would be really cool to get something like that for Star Wars and to have a little bit more fun with it. Because then to also have the Lego minifigs for that, it's like I will spend money. I will spend money I don't have. Yeah. Support us on Patreon, everybody.
There you
go. Yeah. Speaking of Lego Star Wars, Joe, you have something to tell everybody about.
I do have something to tell everybody. Something that I have been sitting on for almost a year. I can finally say as of today. I was actually approached by the good folks at Lego when I was at Star Wars Celebration London. And yeah, I got to do my first ever officially licensed to Lego thing. So it's a limited edition print. It's part of the Lego Insiders Rewards program. It will be available, I believe, May 1st through May 5th. I don't think it's going to be a reward any longer than that. But I do know it is going to be redeemable for 1,800 Lego points, which is a lot. That's a lot of Lego points. But the purpose of it is that when the awesome people at Lego approached me and we talked a lot about the program and what it was that they wanted me to do, they basically said like we are reworking our entire rewards program. We want to offer some like really, really premium, really cool items that like weren't just like throwaway prizes or whatever. Like they really wanted to do something really cool with this new program. And as far as I know, I'm the first artist that they've approached to do a fine art print by the sound of it. And they gave me so much creative freedom. And it's basically celebrating the Lego having the Star Wars license for 25 years. And it was really, really awesome to kind of go in and look through, you know, all of the old Star Wars minifigures and basically R2 is kind of like the hero for the 25th anniversary, so they wanted R2 front and center. So there's a big R2D2 Lego minifigure, and I referenced my own minifigure. I didn't have to look up any reference. I had an R2, so that was very easy to immediately get started. And yeah, they just gave me a ton of freedom and said, hey, yeah, whatever minifigs you want to include, do it. There might be 2 previously unannounced minifigures on there that I don't want to spoil. So uh check it out when you can see a little bit better. It is you can see it right now on the like the May the 4th, um I guess the landing page is the proper term for it on the official
Yeah.
Lego website. For the Star Wars Day landing page, you can see it very small on there, but as it, once it's closer, I will be showing some detailed close-ups and stuff on my Instagram, and I'm sure they will be too. Um, but yeah, I had like most of the say on which minifigs throughout the 25 years that would be included. So really really cool. Like, I sat down and really went through and thought about, okay, well, which ones are my favorites? Which ones do I feel like need to be represented? Which ones are underrepresented? And anyone who follows my, normal Star Wars work knows that basically any chance I get to show love to Legends, expanded universe stuff, like, I am absolutely going to do that. So there's some Knights of the Old Republic stuff. There's a Force Unleashed thing in there. There's I mean, just characters who started out in the EU and ended up being a little bit more prominent. So I really wanted Quinlan Vos and Ayla to be on there, so they're on there. Um and like there's also a lot of characters, of course, who were have been represented many, 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 many times. Like, there's been a
Hmm.
million Leias, there's been a million Han Solos, there's been a million, Lukes and Vaders and everything. But for the most part, for anyone that was a classic figure, I really wanted to do that first 1999 early style. There were one or two that I thought, okay, well, I think, I actually prefer like the newer ones, but like that original Han Solo, which is like the one eyebrow and the regular classic smiley face, like, I had to do that one. Like, you know what I mean? So like the Phantom Menace original Jar Jar, I had to do that one. So it was really cool. Like, I had so much say and so much input on this, and they were so great to work with. Anytime I had questions, uh, they had my back, and all of the reference that I needed. There's I am not going to reveal who this character is. There were actually originally there were going to be 5 reveals on this print of new upcoming minifigures, and man, there was one that I was so excited to do, but we just couldn't make it work in time. It's the reference that I would have needed to complete it on time and in time for May the 4th. It didn't work out. I was so bummed. But I'm so excited that they are making this character into an upcoming minifigure. I think you will be excited too. But that's unfortunately all I can say. But yeah, so my very first ever Lego anything, Star Wars Lego, even more fitting. Um, and I'm just super excited. It was so much fun to do. I can't wait to show some up close detailed shots, because I am actually very, very proud of how I rendered a lot of these minifigures throughout the course of the 25 years that they've had it. It was really cool. And oh yeah, there's one more that I was very excited. Jedi Bob is on there. The generic Jedi who was in the, I think, 2002 Republic gunship Lego set. Everybody loves Jedi Bob. He's super, 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 super popular because he's just generic, and he's been dubbed Jedi Bob lovingly by the fans. I knew he had to be on there, so I made sure he's on there. And there's
Is
a lot
that
of
is
other.
is that the one that's he's like on the left hand side, third from the bottom? Is
Yeah,
that
he's
yeah
below Embo and
yeah
above Cassian Andor. Yes.
yeah yeah? Well, hey, I'm happy. I mean, I'm looking at the poster right now on Lego.com, and I'm happy because my 3 are represented. As a matter of fact, my top 5 characters are on here, but as if
Okay,
they
good,
wouldn't be, right?
good, good.
Because you got Obi-Wan, you got Kanan, you
Hmm.
got Poe, you got Ray, you got Maul, right? So, uh, right,
I
is Maul here? Oh no, maybe
Maul is
Maul's
there.
no, yeah,
No,
Maul is there.
no.
Yeah,
Oh
right.
no, he is there. I actually, when I first started doing this, spoke to you briefly, um,
Yeah.
because I wanted to make sure that I had everything well represented. I didn't go into detail of what was going on and why I was asking you, um,
Yeah.
but
No.
you and I spoke about resistance briefly. So Kaz is on here, and because of speaking to you, I also included a character from Lego Freemakers. So Jack 14 is on here also.
Oh, nice.
So
Fantastic.
he is there.
That's awesome. Yeah, everybody go check it out. So, just to sort of clarify a little bit on the cost of it, right? It's a giveaway, but you have to use your Lego points to get it. So
Yes, to
you need to
redeem it.
be
Yeah,
registered for Lego VIP, or it's not VIP anymore. It's Lego Insiders now.
correct.
So you got Lego Insiders, and it's 1,800 points, which is $18. Like that's what that translates into,
Hmm.
because 2,000 points you can redeem for a $20 um uh gift card, and I believe like you get a point for every dollar,
Hmm.
sort of thing. So yeah, you gotta spend a bunch of money in order to, or no, you get like 10 points for every dollar, I think, because there's no way I'd have, if I had to spend $2,000 to get, because I currently have 20,000. So yeah, it
Oh,
must be
okay.
10 points for every dollar. um Not 20,000, 2,000. I wish I had 20,000 points. I wonder what my lifetime is, because this is the thing, that the funny thing about that is I have 2,000 points on my insiders account right now. I just used 4,000. Like I
Oh
just
man.
used 4,000, but in the transaction where I used the 4,000, we spent $300. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, because every time we go to the Lego store, every time I go to the Lego store, it's not that big of a deal, because I'll go to the Lego store and just buy something for myself. But every time Crystal comes with me, she buys me something, but then she also buys herself something, and then she
Mm.
has to get the girls something, and so it's like
Mm.
we don't walk out of there. If Crystal walks into the Lego store with me, we don't walk out for less than $300 if she's spending money. We just went in the other day and I spent $40, but yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I got 2,000 points. I might have to spend it. I might have to
Oh,
spend it on this
all
poster.
right. I do. Well, look, I know I'm obviously very biased because I'm the one that
Yeah,
illustrated it, but they um overnight FedExed me one to make sure that I could proof it, which dude, working with Lego, like they're awesome. Like
yeah,
everyone there that I have corresponded with has been an absolute delight, including the printers who, I had said, listen, I understand that, because the people that I was speaking to, they're based in Europe, and
yeah,
I am obviously based here in New York. So, when we were talking about proofing, I said, well, listen, I understand because I'm in the States. I understand the timeline is really, really tight right now. So, I trust the judgment of the people that I have been working with. I trust all of you guys. Um, to make sure that it looks great. And they were like, no, 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 we're going to send you one. And they overnighted me one to proof and like look over. I am not exaggerating when I say this is the closest one-to-one printing of what I've seen on my screen to a
mm,
physical product that I have ever witnessed. And that's including Acme, all of the many printers that I've worked with, uh, making, whether I was doing Star Wars Celebration prints, because, Acme doesn't do those, as we have to find our own printers. And I've worked with several different printers. Anything that's been outside of Star Wars stuff, like they nailed it. I'm so impressed with how good and sharp and clean this artwork looks on this physical print. I'm so happy with it. It's like maybe my favorite print that I've ever seen, like in terms of quality, one to one, like from what I designed versus what's actually physically made. I'm so happy with it. I'm so impressed with Lego. Like they crushed it. I'm just like gushing about it.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty great.
yeah. What's the size on it? What are the dimensions? Because it doesn't say on the website.
It is 30 by 40 centimeters.
Okay,
So,
okay,
like I said,
that's
since
good.
I'm working with the actual metric system, so
Yeah,
I'm not used to it. I was like a fish out of water working with this crazy metric system, but
That's a good size though. I mean, like
yeah, it's cool.
that's a pretty full size poster,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Because
very
sometimes
nice.
with the rewards, you get it, and it's like, oh, this is like an 8.5 by 11 sheet,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
neat.
am very proud of you. I'm also very jealous.
Ah, thank you.
But you've worked very hard to this stage. So, yeah, and you nailed it. It looks great. It looks.
Thanks, man.
I'll be honest. Most of the time, 2D renderings of Lego figures don't really do it for me, right? But both like the color palette that you've used, right? Like I just sort of like the tones of it, and then the layout and sort of like the specific concept, right, of it being sort of like this greatest hits sort of lineup of all of the characters. I think really works well.
Thanks, man.
It looks really good. But
It was.
your rendering of the characters is pretty, from what I can see in the little thumbnail that's online right now, is pretty flawless. It looks
I'm
really really
very
good.
happy with how they turned out, because I remember when I first started, like, sat down to start doing it,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh man, I don't know how this is gonna go," but I was
Yeah.
so like, I don't
You
care. I'm
know,
so excited. You know what I mean?
as an artist, that's often the case though. It's like the things that we
Yeah,
say, the things that other
yeah,
people see in us that go like, you can do this. And then we go like, I don't think that I can. It's like, no, you absolutely can. And I'm going to pay you money for it. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I don't have a choice.
yeah,
And then we're backed into that corner. That like, that's when the best stuff happens. Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, you nailed it. You did a good
Oh,
job.
thank you, man.
It's a very exciting moment for me as your friend to see your name on the Lego website, sort of like headlined there. It's right, because it's
Yeah,
not it doesn't just say like, hey, you can get this art print. It's like, you can get this
yeah.
print by Joe Hogan, and I'm
I
like,
I
yeah,
was
that's right.
I was really not expecting that, so that was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, yeah. So you've made something of a name for yourself, I think, via Star Wars Celebration and all of the art shows that you've done over the years with Celebration. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see it. I yeah, I'm probably gonna have to get one of these. I'm probably gonna have to use my points and get one of these. As much as I'd like the $20 off on a Lego set, uh, especially because they just announced a bunch of new ones, and one of the ones is a Brickhead set that's got 6 Brickhead figures in it.
Mm,
And it includes so there's a Jar Jar Brickhead. So the lineup in it is Jar Jar, Little Anakin, uh, um, Queen Amidala, Qui Gon, Darth Maul, and Captain Panaka.
mm,
And little Anakin, Queen Amidala, Captain Panaka, I could really care less about, but I really want Darth Maul, Qui Gon, and Jar Jar.
mm.
So I'm like, it's a $70 set here in Canada. So I'm like,
Cool.
ugh. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But you know what? I'll probably wait on it because they did the set for the Disney 100 that has like Tinkerbell and Oswald and stuff in it, and it's like that thing's on clearance now. You get it for cheap, so
Mm.
I'll just be patient. I'll just be patient. When they do those big sets, it's like I think that they probably do the math on it of like, well, we know that the day one collectors are going to buy this day one, no matter what it is, right? Like we could literally just put like, hey, these are the bones from inside the Rancor pit.
Right.
And they'd be like, well, I got to get it. Right. Cause they're day one collectors, the completionists. Right. So they have numbers on that of like, there's a certain number that are going to do that. Then there's a certain number of people that'll buy it like within the first 3 months. And so then when we put them on clearance, we'll be fine. All right. So yeah, I'll hang back on that set and grab it on its way out, I think. But because I'm only going to put out those 3 figures, the other 3 Brickheads, I wouldn't even put on display.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I'll give the girls Queen Amidala and put it in their room with their Disney princesses. But yeah, but I got it. I need that Darth Maul. I need that Qui Gon. Listen. I need that Jar Jar Brickhead like air. Like it is like oxygen to me. But yeah, I'm
It's nice
addicted
to
to
see a
Lego.
lot more Phantom Menace love.
It's really cool this year. It's so cool this year to see all this Phantom Menace like fanfare. I haven't gotten tickets yet for the re-release. I really need to do that. I
Yeah, me
need to
too,
figure that
actually.
out. But I need to figure out who's going with me because I don't know. I don't know
Right.
who
I
wants
mean,
to
that's
go
the
see
issue
the
for me
Phantom
too.
Menace with me.
That's why I haven't
But
bothered yet either.
yeah, I love it. I love it. I can't. Well, yeah, I hope that we get the same thing for Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith when it comes around. But likely we will. They like bumping up those box office numbers
Mm.
with the re-releases. Um, Cool. Well, that's all of our news. Let me just really quickly tell everybody, go to patreon.com/thunderquack to get early access to the podcast. It goes out a few days early on Patreon. But you also get exclusive access to Off the Record, which we released all of our March episodes of Off the Record on the regular on the regular podcast feed. But now in April, it goes back onto the exclusive feed. So if you were enjoying Off the Record, you want to keep listening to that podcast, you can check it out over at patreon.com/thunderquack, along with a bunch of other really great bonuses. We've got bonus episodes for all of our podcasts that we did back in February during the pledge drive. So go check that out. And I mean, most importantly, you are supporting the creation of these ridiculous things that we make at ThunderQuack. And I know like $5 when you compare that to like the cost of a Netflix subscription or whatever, it's like you're getting a lot more content with those other things, but you're also kind of like contributing to the downfall of media when you do it. Um, Whereas like if you give us $5, you're supporting a small creator and so that money is going a lot farther than it is with Netflix or Disney Plus or Paramount Plus or any of the other pluses. So yeah, it means a ton to us, to me specifically, when you guys support through Patreon, and hopefully the rewards that you get in return are worthwhile. But yeah, patreon.com/thunderquack, $5 a month, or you can do it annually, and save 10%. Yeah, that's it. Go to Patreon. Real quick, because we're already at 2 hours on this episode. What games you gaming lately?
So Tina and I just finished Kiwi, which is an adorable, optionally co-op kind of like task game. Tina loves games like Overcooked and Moving Out,
Mm-hmm.
and basically every game that I hate. That's just stressful and there's a time limit and like they're just like busy games. Tina loves those games, but Kiwi is actually really fun. You play as a little kiwi bird guy and you just do these like little mailing tasks and you're working in a little post office and you're shipping stuff out and doing stuff on time. It was really fun. We finished the entire 3-season campaign. It was really cute. We had a lot of fun. Games like that are relationship testers, and I'm happy to say that Tina and I are still very much in love and engaged because we are very good with cooperating with one another. But it's one of those like it is a stress test on your relationship with the person you're playing it with. But yeah, Kiwi's really good, and recently started Remnant 2, kind of a Souls like shooter, and I'm playing that with my buddy Nate. And yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about it. We are pretty early into it. Really fun. We really like the first game, and so far 2 is more of the same good stuff. So, what about you, Mike? What are you playing?
Yeah, so much more Lego Fortnite. Uh, and I'm just like I'm deep in that Fortnite grind right now because I gotta unlock this stuff for the Avatar event that's going on right now. Um, so that's pretty much everything that I've been playing lately. It's also just like I'm so busy with so many other things that Fortnite is really great as just like a mind numbing. Like I put on a podcast
Mm.
and play, or the with the everybody else is using the TV in the living room, then I can just grab my PlayStation Portal and play on that. Because I don't need to. There's no story to track or anything like that. So, yeah, I've just been really enjoying winding down with that game most nights, and And then because we are gearing up, I guess this is the first episode since we've sort of like dropped the announcement. I should have probably said this earlier in the episode, but we've got our new Sonic the Hedgehog podcast dropping this week.
Mm.
Way past cool. With me and Hope Molinax, talking about, we're going to talk about Sonic the movie, the 2020 movie. And so we're doing that this week, and then next week we'll be talking about Sonic 2, and then we'll be doing weekly recap episodes for Knuckles when that starts dropping on April 26th. So look forward to that every Wednesday for the next little bit, for basically 8 weeks. But in anticipation of that, I figured that I would drop back into Sonic Origins and play a little bit. I played through Sonic 1, um, and then started on Sonic CD, which I've never completed. I made it quite a ways through it, and then got really frustrated. And I was like, "There's a reason why I haven't completed this game. Sonic CD sucks. It's terrible. It's a terrible Sonic game." So then I jumped into Sonic 2, which I love, and was my first Sonic game, the first Sonic game that I owned when we got our Sega Genesis, and because it was like it was the bundle pack, right, with Sonic 2, and I was having a great time, but then the stress of getting all of the Chaos Emeralds really started to get to me,
Mm.
because there's a mechanic in Sonic Origins where you can retry the bonus levels, because that's how you get the Chaos Emeralds, right?
Okay.
So if you have coins, which you get coins from playing the game for various things. So if you've got the coins, basically in lieu of extra lives, you get coins. You've got these coins, you can use them to retry the bonus stages.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
the
That's
the
cool.
bonus stages in Sonic 2 are pretty notoriously difficult. Um, Sonic 3 is even worse because they're hard to find. You have to like know where they are in the stages in order to even access them. So getting them all before you beat the game is really difficult. But with Sonic 2, the actual bonus game itself is like super hard. So it was the first time that we ever really saw Sonic in like full 3D, right? Not from the side, not 2.5D, but saw him in like full 3D from behind. And so you're behind Sonic and Tails in like a half pipe that they're running down, and you can like go left or right on the half pipe. You can actually do like a full loop on the thing if you hold down the direction, right? You get your speed going. And there are rings coming at you, and you got to get the rings, right? But there are also these bombs, and if you hit the bombs, every time you hit a bomb, you lose 10 rings, and you have to get a certain number of rings. There are 3 checkpoints in each level in order to get to the end and get the Chaos Emerald. You have to memorize the patterns on these, and you have to do it like by the 5th Chaos Emerald. You basically have to do these perfectly. You
Oh
have to not
God.
hit any of the bombs, and you have to get as many of the rings as possible in order to get through these. And normally when I'm playing a round of Sonic 2, it's not that big of a deal, because you every time you hit a checkpoint, a little like star portal appears above it if you've got more than 50 rings, and you jump through it, you do it, you give it a go, you fail at it, you just move on with the level. But if you've got a bunch of coins, of which I had 250 when I start, or around 250 when I started this playthrough of Sonic 2, you can just keep retrying these bonus levels. And my brain was like, stop playing these bonus levels. You are not beating it. You've spent 30 coins. Just move on and play Sonic. I was like, but if I don't have all of the Chaos Emeralds, I don't get the proper ending. Right? Because if you don't have all the Chaos Emeralds, you can't turn into Super Sonic. You can't properly defeat Robotnik. And
Mm.
that's the proper ending that leads into Sonic 3. So I have to have all the Chaos Emeralds. So I have to keep going. I need to get them all. The next time, what's going to happen is if I quit out now, I'm going to play through the rest of this level, but then I'm going to get to the next checkpoint. I'm going to go through the portal, and then I'm just going to be back here again. So I might as well just do it now. So I just was like in this loop of like arguing with myself of like, stop, it's not working. But also like, but you have to do this eventually, so you may as well just do it now. And it's like, so am I playing a video game, or is the video game playing me? I'm not 100% sure. And then on top of it, I don't know if you guys know this. I love Sonic the Hedgehog more than life itself. He is one of my first fandoms. More about that on Way Past Cool on the first episode that'll come out this Wednesday, April 17th. But Sonic video games suck. Just as a rule, just as a general rule, there are not that many that are very good. Sonic 2 and 3 are pretty good games, but they are also very punishing, and they are also like there are like 5 good levels in the like 15 levels of the game. And then the rest of them are like infuriating because it's like you finally get some speed going, and then there's a thing that like you can't predict that. You couldn't predict that. And even
Yeah.
though you've played through this level 10,000 times, you forget that like, oh, there are spikes there. And so it just you're just stopped in your tracks. Now, like Sonic CD is the worst. Sonic CD, the levels are designed so poorly that you can't even get up to speed. um and there's a mechanic in the game of traveling to the past and the future that require you to get up to speed, and so it's very frustrating because it's like in order to progress in this level I have to get up to speed, but I can't get up to speed, and so I'm stuck in this part and I'm not going fast and I'm not having fun, and this is not why I play Sonic games. So yeah, Sonic games are not actually that much fun, but I play them anyways because I love Sonic the Hedgehog so much. The music is so good and the animation is so good that you just kind of put up with it. But
I love Sonic games in theory,
yeah,
but like every time I sit down to play one, I'm just like, The last one I enjoyed was Sonic Mania. I really like Sonic Mania.
that Sonic Mania is good because it has the benefit of hindsight of all of these other 2D Sonic games,
Yeah.
both the good and the bad. And so like I think like when you're playing Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, the original ones, right? You're kind of going through that and you're seeing them figure out how to build a Sonic level. So like Sonic and Knuckles I would say is actually probably the cleanest, right? Like it's actually the most fun to play. Um because like you like there's some good levels. There's some really really good levels where you get up to some good speed and like it makes sense, and it's fun to play. But um but then like Sonic 4 is terrible. Such a bad game, such poorly designed Sonic levels. And then like the 3D stuff is like all over the place. And so I think like with Sonic Mania, they were able to look at everything and go, okay, what makes good Sonic? And they were able to distill that and then like build really good Sonic levels. And which is one of the reasons why I think they like remixed things. So a lot of the of that game is like you play through the first, it's because you're kind of going through the greatest hits of Sonic. You play through the first zone and it's basically a recreation. It's not a 1-to-1 because those games were made in 4:3 aspect ratio, and now the game can be in 16:9 on modern consoles. So it actually really changes things quite a lot, because when you can see that much further ahead of yourself, you're able to play Sonic a little bit better. But I so there's little tweaks and stuff here and there, but then what they would do is like the second zone would be like a remix of that world, so it would be a new level in that setting, and that I think was a really cool way to do, to like go like, okay, we're giving you a bunch of nostalgia from these original levels, but then like we're gonna build some modern 2D Sonic.
Mm.
So I think Sonic Mania is like right in the sweet spot. um but man, Sonic Superstars that just came out this year, because like Sonic Origins came out in between them. Sonic Origins is just a re-release of Sonic 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles and Sonic CD, the 5 games. I and they're enhanced, they're upgraded to 16:9, but they are ports. They are ports and they are running on an emulator, and I know that because I started up Sonic 3 just to see what it was like. And I when you get to that waterfall at the end of the first zone, is it the end of the first zone or second zone? I can't remember if that one has 2 or 3 zones. But you get to a fight with this thing, and it's a waterfall, and it's like this waterfall is coming down, and the slowdown is so ridiculous. I'm like, okay, cool. So you guys didn't enhance this at all. Like you didn't fix this part of the game, because nowadays the processor can handle that, right? But back in the day it was 16-bit, it was like, yeah, okay, slowdown is going to be a part of this. There's a lot going on the screen. But in theory, a PlayStation 5 should be able to handle this. And there was so much slowdown. It's like, okay, so it's not actually running natively on the PS5. It's running a Sega Genesis emulator in 16:9. That's the enhancement that they did. And so I'm like, points docked. Points docked on this review, guys. Because they really should have. They really should have rebuilt it from the ground up. But anyways. I say that, and then there are other people that are purists. They'll be like, "No, it should just be exactly the way that it was." So, I don't think that that's the point of a remake, but or just give us both in the same thing, because those ROMs don't cost anything in terms of like storage space. Because those games used to have to fit on cartridges that were like less than a flash drive from 10 years ago. If you thought that if you think that there's a gig of space on a Sega Genesis cartridge, you're sorely mistaken. I don't even think the term gigabyte existed yet. Yeah. Anyways, if it did, it was conceptual. It wasn't real. I just string together a whole bunch of memory, a whole bunch of hard drives in order to equal a gigabyte. But yeah, so Sonic Origins. I don't know. It's Sonic games are fun until they're not, and then you turn them off and walk away.
Basically, yeah.
Cool. We've already talked a whole bunch about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is what you've been watching, and then I watched the live action. I had watched the first episode when it premiered, and then I watched, and then like I got busy with other stuff. There's too many things. There's too much stuff to watch. And I wanted to watch it with Crystal because she likes Avatar as well, but that was not working out. And so, in anticipation of our next episode of Perfect 10, which I'll tell you guys right now, Joe and I are recording tomorrow, and it's going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series. I was like, okay, well, cool. Then I will finish the live action. I was going to make my best effort to finish it off. I started watching the second episode and then was like, oh, I'm going to finish this now. And I got through most of the season. And then like Saturday morning, that was Friday. And then Saturday morning, I watched the finale of season 1, which is unbelievable. It's so good. It's a great adaptation. We'll talk way more about this on Perfect 10, but I'll go into a lot of detail on it. But yeah, I think like along the lines of what I was saying earlier in the episode about like measuring your expectations and understanding the amount of work that goes into accomplishing these sorts of shows. If you are a rational, reasonable human being that understands budget and the amount of work that it takes to make these things happen on screen, the show is incredible. Because it doesn't have a crazy. I mean, it's got a big budget. Like Netflix put a lot of money into it compared to a lot of their other shows, and I think it shows up on screen. But it's not like they have 8 episodes to do, and some big stuff to accomplish, especially in that finale. And that like they've got a lot to live up to with the animated stuff. You're compressing 20 episodes into 8. 20 half-hour episodes into 8-hour longs, but yeah, I think they did a great job of adapting it. I think that they kept the most important parts of the story, and they sort of let the rest of it sort of fall to the wayside. I don't think like people want to judge it against the animated, but they don't want to include it with the animated, and I think that is one of the biggest mistakes. Because to me, it's like I think you judge it on its own merits, but you watch it knowing that the animated version exists, and knowing and I think it is better to watch the animated first and then watch the live action, because you're going to understand a lot more of the story that way, because the live action one kind of blows through a lot of stuff. But But the one thing is that it also has the benefit of hindsight in that like all 3 seasons of Avatar The Last Airbender exist, all 4 seasons of Korra exist, as well as a bunch of other supplementary stuff. And so they're able to, in the season 1 story, enhance it and add some extra stuff to it, that I don't want to spoil here because people might not have watched it yet, and Joe, you haven't watched it yet.
No,
So like
not yet.
there's stuff that they change in season 1 with the benefit of knowing characters that don't show up until season 3. So yeah, like I actually think that like it is not, people pit against, right? They're like okay, now make them fight each other. And I'm like, why are you doing that? We have both exist, and they actually enrich one another. Like that's the thing. So now when I go back and watch the animated one, I'm going to be thinking about it and going like, okay, well, if we take context from the live action stuff and we actually apply this into the first season of the animated series, is that going to enhance the animated series? And I think it will. Like I think when I go back and rewatch it, it will. So yeah, like that to me, when you do an adaptation, that's the goal, is to enrich the source material and vice versa. So it's like not that we don't do the Harry Potter thing around these parts anymore, but it's just a really great example of like the books versus movies. It's like it's not versus. It doesn't need to be versus. You get to have both. You get to have both. It's like whenever you see that meme, I hate the memes that are like choose 3, and I'm like, but you've got a list of 15 things, and we actually have access to all 15 of those things. I don't have to choose 3, right? And it's like one's got to go, and actually one doesn't have to go.
Yeah.
One doesn't have to go. All of these are actually things that we get to have, and if you don't like one of them, you don't have to enjoy it. Nobody's forcing you to enjoy things, right? Yeah, and if it's too woke for you, just keep on walking. But whatever your thing is, that you're mad about. But yeah, I really really enjoyed the live action adaptation, to the point that like I like binged on Friday, which was not really my plan. I was like, I'll watch a couple episodes and then maybe I'll watch Invincible, and maybe I'll check out, because I think Fallout had come out by that. But I'm gonna like catch up on a bunch of things, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna watch this, and so that's what I did that day. To be clear, while playing Fortnite on my portal, I was doing
Time to
both
be
at the same
alive.
time. Yeah, but it was I mean, it was great. I've got my Avatar Aang in Fortnite Lego, which is just such a ridiculous thing to even say while I'm watching the live action adaptation on my 70-inch screen in front of me. It's just like, wow, this is pretty perfect. It's a pretty good way to spend a Friday. And also because it's for the podcast, I'm like, this is work. I'm working today. So yeah. But as an artist, like, you gotta sometimes you gotta take those days where it's like, I'm not gonna make anything today. I just have to consume, because I gotta like refill the tank, you know. And Friday was one of those days for me, and so it was like, this is good. This is good food for my creative soul. They did a really really good job with it. And so all the people that are complaining, I think that they're just complaining because it's the internet and that's what you do on the internet. But yeah, like I said, set your expectations appropriately, and I think that you'll have a good time with it. It's a shorter, condensed version of the animated stuff, and it is a live action adaptation. The action's not going to be as off the wall, the humor is not going to be as absurd, and the effects are not going to be as perfect. It's perfect in the animated thing because everything can look the same, right? But if you've got CG visual effects alongside live action, there's going to be moments where it's like, yeah, they're clearly on a green screen, right? But like, whatever we need to do in order to accomplish the task, I can still watch the original Star Wars and marvel at it, even though the effects are way dated, right? So I think that everybody just needs to like ease up on the VFX arguments, like ease up on it. I said to Crystal, is like, people complain about the Star Wars shows. This was again when we were watching Ahsoka. It's like, people complain about these shows. They're like, oh, this Obi-Wan Kenobi show looks like a TV show. And I'm like,
Well, gee whiz.
it is a TV show, you dinkus. Like, for goodness sake, they are TV shows. They don't have hundreds of millions of dollars for the budget for an individual episode. They have to use their budget. They might have a $2 million budget per episode, and that sounds like a lot of money, but it takes a lot of people to accomplish these things. And I just think like the finale of Avatar of season 1, the animated, right? Like when he goes like koi fish Zilla, that's big. That's a big finale, guys. And in animation, it's easy. It's not, I mean, it's not easy. It still takes a lot of skill and a lot of planning and a lot of hard work. And the people who put that together did a really great job with the animated thing. But it is a lot easier to do, to pull off in animation than it is to do it in live action. And there is a frame, it's a shot. It's a sequence of frames, but like basically like a freeze frame that you can do in that episode in the live action that I think is just like a work of art. It's like they spent more time with the visual effects, making sure that it looked good, like that it looked pretty, right? That it like stylistically and tonally that it fit, than whether or not it looks real, quote unquote, right? And I think that that was the right call. They made sure that it was beautiful more than photorealistic, because like photorealism is boring. That's not why I watch movies. I don't want photorealism. It's cinema is heightened anyways. Photorealism is like take a picture with your camera and then look at something that a photographer has done like side by side, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's like that's the art of movie making. And so yeah, if it looks cool, if it looks beautiful, if it looks interesting, that's way more important to me than if it looks quote unquote real. So yeah, that's me. Oh, and then Bluey, the big episode of Bluey happened this past weekend, and we all cried except for Cassie, who just sat there because it was like over her head. Like the nuance of it was over her head. But it was the first time that I've seen Kara emotionally affected by a piece of media.
Oh wow, okay.
Because she's 7.5, right? She'll be 8 in August, so she's at that age now. But we finished the episode and was like, so what do you think? She's like, I did not like that episode. And I was like, yeah, you did. Yes, you did. You'll understand when you're older. Because sometimes it feels good to hurt the way that they did it. And I mean, like yeah, it goes through the full roller coaster of emotions. It's a really, really good episode. Bluey is a really great show. It'll be a perfect 10 eventually, but and I'm gonna do an off the record, not this week, probably next week. I'll do it after the final episode of the season airs, so that I can talk about everything. I don't want to jump the gun and talk about it right after this one episode if something else happens in the next one. But yeah, what a great show. And like, not just for kids. Like, I think that everybody can watch Bluey and enjoy it and get something from it. Yeah, so good. I love it so much. Yeah, I talked about it a bit last week, like of it affecting me emotionally. Not even watching it, just thinking about the show, it broke me a little bit. But yeah, what about you? What have you been watching?
That's really it. It was Avatar.
Just Avatar. Yeah,
not a whole lot other than that.
Neither one of us have checked out Fallout yet. Are you gonna watch Fallout? Is it on your radar?
I might. I mean, I've never played any of those games, so I'm just not really invested in it.
Yeah,
but I've heard really good things about it so far, so I might. We'll see.
Yeah, I loved Fallout 3. And I haven't really played any of the other ones, but I loved Fallout 3, and I love the world. I love the concept of it. So I will get into it, and I'll report back at some point once I've watched it. Cool. Well, you know what? I think that's it. That's it for this episode. We're coming in at 2.5 hours. Thank you guys for hanging out. Don't forget to stay up to date with everything ThunderQuack by following us on social media and get extra content like reviews and reactions on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And thank you to all our faithful ThunderQuack supporters on Patreon. We couldn't do the show without your support. Head to patreon.com/ThunderQuack to get early access to episodes like this one and bonus content. Thank you guys for listening, and stay frosty.